Good afternoon, everybody. Uneducated Economist here. So, the home builder sentiment came out, and it's dropping. Now, it's still high. There's still the desire to continue to build homes out there to try and take advantage of these high prices in the real estate market, but the builders are getting nervous. They're not as excited as they once were. And this is where I knew that the shift in new construction was going to take place. I didn't know exactly how that was going to look, but I knew that it was going to start happening. And now what we have going on is that plenty of builders want to take advantage of the high prices. They want to get these projects started. They want to continue on and get these things to completion and get them sold, but completing a house is very difficult. The prices of lumber are moving up dramatically, and the availability of some of these items to complete a home is just not in the game. And so to try and work the environment like you once did is just not going to be possible. There has to be a new strategy taking place if you want to be successful when it comes to the new construction market. Now, this is something that we have talked about several times. The availability of material is going to keep a lot of homes off the market. It's going to prevent them from completion. And now, I get a lot of information. I get a lot of information from my vendors, from the other salesmen who are in the game, from the contractors that I work with. I get a lot of information, but there's not a lot that I get to share with you guys as far as being able to provide you with the link that you can go and judge the information for yourself, so that you can make your own informed decision. I mean, that's the whole point of my channel from the very beginning, was for you to take the information that I come up with and to run with that on your own, to use it in conjunction with the other things that you have learned. I'm just a piece. I'm not the results of information. I'm just a piece of the information. Now, some of the things that I have been saying was that the OSB, the Oriented Strand Board, this is a very common component to new construction. When you look at new construction and you see those guys who are framing the houses up together, a lot of the time they're using oriented strand board for the sheathing. So you have the skeleton of the house, and then you got the sheathing that goes on the outside. This is like the skin before all the doors and windows and siding and stuff goes in. Now, I said it a long time ago, this OSB market is in a very tight supply. And there's people who contacted me going, I don't know what it is that you're talking about, because I just went down to my local, building supply center, one of the big box stores, and they have it stacked to the ceiling, and it's like half the price of what you're saying it is. You're going to have to understand that not all the material in this country flows as freely as you might think. Wood is very cumbersome. It takes trucks and rails and a distribution line to get this stuff to move through the system. So there may be areas of the country that get flooded with material, like a particular OSB floods into this particular market because of the ease and availability of the transportation getting into that area. Some other places, it's very difficult. And getting that steady flow of material running into that area is just not possible, between the lack of availability just in general, but then also the lack of transportation, from whether it being just not being able to find the truck drivers, or the available space just to get it moved into those distribution hubs and out to those different vendors. I mean, this is something that is a serious case. And so, yeah, you might be in a particular area where you get material really easy, or a particular type of material, but then other places of the country stay completely dry, and there is no availability in those areas. So the hodgepodge, or the difficulty of having that constant ease, right? Ease of availability. It's just not there in the game any longer. Listen to this. OSB supply outside contracted wood is hard to find at the prices are far exceeding even the print levels. Producers have limited their production and offerings to reverse the price reductions we saw in the markets in the beginning of the third quarter. Sadly, they have gotten pretty good at manipulating the market in their favor. Southern yellow pine and fir plywood are both very short supply, and prices at this point is secondary to availability. I-joist LVL supply are still a concern as allocations are firmly in place. So right there, that should tell you that the idea of just being able to just go and build a house and just have the logistics just fall right into place, it's not happening. It's not even remotely close to happening. Now, I don't know how it is that a builder is supposed to like work in this environment. Either you have to be really good in close contact with your vendor or your supplier, or just have a buying power that's so off the charts that it doesn't concern you because you will be first in line. Unless you're one of those three, I just don't see how it is that completing a home over this environment is going to be anything but difficult. You know, I've had quite a few people contact me saying, "Hey, can you provide me with material?" And they're like literally hundreds of miles away, sometimes thousands of miles away. And I'm thinking, I'm just a local distributor in my area. Now, I do have access to a lot of material, but I'm getting it from Portland. So the distribution is coming out of Portland. If it's anywhere outside of Portland, then you would have to find another distribution location, going up towards Seattle or going off to another major, city or something like that. This is where you're going to find the easiest access to material and at the cheapest price. The farther you get away from those hubs, the less availability and the higher the prices go. So, no, I really can't. I mean, I could try and, say set something up from one of my vendors to try and bring a wholesale price to somebody. But if they're just working on a project like a single home or something to try and get their house constructed, there's really nothing that anybody can do except for you working those logistics yourself to be able to, find the vendors who have the windows or the garage doors or whatever it is, those parts and pieces that you need. But as far as like the idea that like at one time where you could say, hey, I'm going to be needing windows in a couple of weeks, I need to get that order placed. No, you needed to do that like 3 months ago. So right now, if we are in this kind of like short of supply kind of condition, I can just only see the frustration levels for completing a house to continue to grow. And if completing a house is difficult, then that's going to keep the inventory off the market. If inventory stays off the market, the prices are going to stay elevated. Now, granted, we're gonna have to take the Federal Reserve and the possible raising of interest rates into consideration and what that is going to do to the mortgage market. But we also have to consider how low these mortgage rates are, even if they are starting to go up. They are still incredibly low. And the demand for houses is incredibly high. So I could only assume that unless something majorly changes, like an incredibly high interest rate to those mortgages start to kick in, that will actually convince people to say, I am not even going to go and consider buying a house right now. Unless that kind of environment comes up, I just don't see where the reversal in home prices are going to take place. Not until we start seeing a lot more inventory coming on the market. With that being said, I do see more inventory coming onto the market from a demographics issue. Whereas like the baby boomers start to retire and moving out of their homes and say maybe into assisted living facilities or maybe moving in with family or just not being on their own anymore and no longer needing a whole house, well then I could see where that inventory could come onto the market. However, that's going to be very slow and it's not going to happen in like a single month or even over the course of like a few months. It's going to take years of that kind of condition continuing onward in order to develop that inventory that people are anticipating coming from, say, I hate for lack of a better term, the great die-off which I hear a lot of people kind of refer to it as, and I'm sure that's not exactly the most pleasing way of hearing about, about the baby boomers moving out of their house and into, another form of living. But that could be a situation in which that does bring more inventory onto the market. So if we have a time in the future where the logistics begin to ease, where the availability is no longer being held back by the producers, when we have a situation in which that the interest rates are conducive to the average person being able to purchase a home, not only the interest rates but the prices, whether they stay the same and income starts to rise, or if income stays where it is and the prices come down, either way, that's what it's going to take for people to be able to have that availability to buy into these homes. But it's not happening. And so I think about like even my area where I'm at. Like I live in a very expensive real estate market. Clatsop County is terrible. Like even I was just talking with not the building inspector, but a home inspector for doing the inspections before you get a mortgage and stuff like that. And he was telling me that the house that he went and looked at yesterday was $350,000, needed extensive foundation work and completely gutted. And I thought, man, $350,000 for a major fixer-upper in my area. And this is the situation that we're in here. I could only think about some of the things that I was reading from Cantion's essay and how new money coming into a particular area starts causing the prices to move up, and the people who are at the very end of the line have to suffer the most with it. And that's really where the situation is starting to take place here in my county, in that there is less people to work like the service industries, working at the restaurants, working at the bars, working, some of the regular jobs here, because they simply can't afford to live here any longer. So you can have the job, but your way of life is just terrible here unless you happen to have, a really good job or a decent investment savings or other multiple properties, but you're not going to be making it as the average person here. Or if you do, you have to sacrifice a lot in order to have that, to live here, because your standard of living on an average job is going to be really low. Anyhow, I guess that's what I wanted to talk about, was that builder sentiment being low. Retail sales, that's another thing. Like I said it a long time ago, retail sales were falling off dramatically. I could tell at the store, and people were saying, well, they're just moving to online shopping because they don't want to go outside and risk getting COVID or something like that. Yeah, I could see that. I could see that being some of it, but no. I know how much my phone rings. I know what the customers are looking for. I know how many are walking through the door. I am the first in line when it comes to retail sales. And I knew it. I mean, I put a video out over a month ago saying that the retail sales are dropping off dramatically. That the retail sales were dying. And it's happening. It's happening now. People realize that the price of stuff is so expensive that they're going to start buying less of it. And that's what's going to happen. There's going to be less economic activity taking place. So, anyhow, I know there was a few people who said that they wanted to contact me about getting the material. Tia from across the river, send me that email. Let's talk about your project a little bit. Anybody who's in the in this area and you want to know about building materials and what's coming into the future, give me a call, send me an email, and let's talk about your project and some of the things that we could do about working out the logistics of it, because it's going to be a very difficult summer. It's going to be a very difficult summer. Okay, I think that's what I got. Uneducated Economist. You guys let me know.